In this Lesson 5, we will meet the remaining characters and read rules on this chart. These characters on the last part of this chart should really not be strangers to the students, since the whole chart has been displayed from the beginning. There should have been many opportunities for the teacher to have the students observe various read rule combinations hidden in words which they met throughout the day in math, science, or even on announcements on the school bulletin board. This presentation has again been divided into 3 parts, as we see here. Part 1 will address the castle section, Part 2 will deal with the giraffe section, and Part 3 will cover the last part of the chart. Yes, this is a long lesson, but it is important to point out that upon completion of this Lesson 5, you will have completed half of this set. So the continued slow, measured time spent here on the different parts will be well worth it. Let's go back to Part 1. The LE at the end of a word sounds like the sound we hear at the end of castle. The PH sound we hear at the beginning of phone. The TION sound at the end of invitation. The DGE sound at the end of bridge. Notice our shy, frightened snail is the clue that the vowel that appears up front in this word will sound short. More about that later. In our English language, if we do not have a vowel in a word, we do not have a word, and that's a fact. We have met the Y sound before in words like yellow and yes, but it has a few other sounds as well. In fact, it can substitute for a vowel when needed. So when it does, it sounds like a long I saying its name. So Y here in the word CRY sounds like an I. It gives us cry. In the next word baby, there's already an A there. So the Y does not have to substitute, and it then sounds like an E. Baby. I know. Strange, but that's the way it is. Our English language does have all of these twists and turns, but following these picture clues, it all works out fine. Distribute display page 22. Discuss as a group the words on this page. Look at the read rules. Follow the arrows and bounce on the sounds. E, ga, ul, eagle. Ba, e, ta, ul, beetle. Ta, ta, ul, turtle. Now notice the DGE words. Stress that the little snail reminds the students that the front vowel is short. B, adge, badge. H, edge, hedge. Now for the vocabulary. As we did with the previous lesson, select only the cards from lists 8, 9, and 10, which contain the new rules like LE, PH, and TION, and others from the castle section, as well as cards with the old rules that are interspersed, of course. The measured introduction of the rules helps the students to get their toes wet slowly, so to speak. So put aside the cards with the giraffe and the celery sounds for now, and certainly be sure to put aside the cards with the small monkeys. We'll get to them shortly. Spend enough time on one section of the rules and cards before moving on. No workbook or reading book yet. When the students are comfortable with the sounds on this part of the chart, move on to the second lesson. GE, GI, and GY have the J sound. Huge, gentle, giraffe at gym. These sounds are straightforward, and they're easy enough. Pointing out the J sound, ask for volunteers to read the giraffe section using the J sound. Then write this sentence on the board. Have the students study it, and then ask for volunteers to read it, reminding them to use these new rules and the old ones as well, of course, because many rules will begin to overlap, and that makes things easier. Focus on the last word. Remind them that they know a lot about this new word already. Ask for a volunteer to take the word apart at the board. We have the word in, someone will say. Also, the GI overlaps with the in, and that gives us gin. We also have the growling sound. It overlaps with the GE sound and gives us jur. So putting it all together, we have ginger. Write the sentence. Look at the last word. Again, the rules overlap. The ER rule and the new GE sound give us germs. As we see here, CE, CY and CI sound like an S. Celery cycles at a circus. Ask for several volunteers to read the words using the new sound shown. Write this. Have them study the last word. Someone will point out and then the ul sound. Again, in this word, one rule overlaps the other. And that's great. Double clues are good. The overlaps the CI, so running them together, we have sa-erkle. Write this on the board. Ask for a volunteer to analyze this word C-E-N-T. Someone will say that there is one vowel in the word. Someone else will add that there is the new CE sound overlapping. Combined, they give us the word scent. Write this. Look at the last word. Someone will say that this word has the CE rule. Someone else will point out that there is also a magic E rule, which makes the front vowel long. Great. Combining the rules, we have lace. Write this. Have someone decode this center word, CYCLONE. It is a treasure trove of red rules. Magic E, CL blend, and the new CY. Red rules are everywhere. And at this point, students will be pointing them all out and be able to decode the word cyclone. As you've certainly noticed by now, many students will independently be isolating the sounds themselves in words, as I have just demonstrated. They are independently looking at words from all different angles to decode them. They become very good detectives. That is what has been encouraged from the beginning. The point is, they have been taught that new words are not really strangers, so they will look for anything in them that they recognize. They certainly do not become this finely tuned with any other program, so praise their detective work. Now again, choose the new cards from these rules, from lists 8, 9, and 10. Spend a lot of time on these cards. The students prefer decoding the cards to any other activity, so it works out just fine. This is the midpoint of the set, so take it slowly and continue to review all of the old word cards as well. It is important that the teacher observe a comfortable level of progress at this point with all of the vocabulary. The reason for this is that when we finish with these red rules, we will finally begin to address the cards where words are accompanied by a small monkey. So before moving to the workbook and the reading stories for these lists, we have one more thing to do. Yes, it's time. Those trickiest of critters. We have just spent a lot of time on these two sections. That brings us to the last section of the chart. While other parts of the chart are very precise regarding the sound desired, the same cannot be said of these. Up until now, we have not had any tricky words on cards because we know by their very name that the words do not follow any rules. Yes, we have added tricky little guys like to and go to words we already knew in our reading, and that was easy. But while this last section has red letters, this section is more of an alert, a silly warning that you want to be on the lookout for these letters, OU, OW, and GH, because words with these letters are the trickiest of all. Let me explain. We have learned about those little tricky words me and to and others, and they were okay. And then we learned on page 20 how to bounce on letters for the bigger words, the trickier words, and that was okay. Everything worked out fine. There were big smiles, because you could almost hear the word as it rolled around on your tongue, and everyone giggled and was anxious to be the one to say the new word. But if we do the same thing with another set of words, specifically words that contain OW, OU, and GH, mostly they just won't sound right, because these three belong to a family of sounds that really, absolutely, has no rules. Now you see why we saved this OU, OW, GH family for last. There has to be a way to do this. Well, there is. Let's look at this box over which the monkey rules. When vocabulary cards with OU, OW, or GH are introduced, a small monkey will appear in the corner to make the reader aware that this is a tricky critter, but not just any tricky critter, but one of the trickiest critters of all. That alerts the students that they need a clue, some help, because this word will only make sense in context. Now we have figured out tricky words in context as we did on page 20. But OU, OW, and GH words mostly just don't work. That's how tricky they are. So the teacher will give a sentence leaving out the new word. Let's look inside the box. We see OW can be a cow sound, or it can be a bow sound. Tricky. But with a little clue, we can figure out which, like this. In this sentence, I live in a small, is it tone? Does it match bow? Or does it match cow, town? I live in a small tone. I live in a small town. It matches cow. The only sound that makes sense is the cow sound. But things get trickier. Look at our cute little sleepy dog. He is supposed to be watching out for OU and GH words, and there are a lot of them. But our little watchdog seems to be sleeping on the job. He's a cutie, but look at him. You can't depend on him. He likes to sleep. So here's our clue that you cannot depend on OU and GH either. They each have a few sounds. In fact, OU has 4 different sounds. But it's not important to remember that. And GH is no better. If GH appears at the beginning of a word, it usually sounds like the beginning of ghost. If it appears at the end of a word, it sounds like an F at the end of rough. Yet many times if GH appears in the middle of a word, you won't hear it at all, like caught. Is it any wonder that these guys were saved for last? Understand something. I'm sharing tidbits about these 3 sounds, OU and OW and GH, but don't think you have to remember them. But the truth is, there are no rules here to remember where these letters are concerned. This chart is merely a reference, a place to glance, a reminder that a clue is needed. In the beginning, the teacher will give a clue. It might take a few tries, but by using the consonant sounds, even old red rule sounds the best you can, and thinking about what makes sense in the sentence, you can figure out the word. Eventually in the reading, there is certainly no monkey clue. The sentence itself will provide the clue. And students will get so good at figuring out what word should fit that they will unlock the word smoothly, by themselves, as they read. Problem solved. To make things a little easier, once in a while, OU and GH cards will not have a monkey symbol. Yes, they have a few sounds, but on cards where the OU is actually the ouch sound shown here, as in words pout, mount, or shout, the clue works, so no monkey symbol is necessary. Or when IGH is actually the real light sound, as in words fight, tight, or bright, there will be no symbol. It's not necessary. The sound works. There, that might help a little. Important announcement here. Students must understand that everybody has trouble with these trickiest of words in the beginning. So it is okay to make a mistake, even laugh at the very silly words that are pronounced. Many times, even the funny pronunciations that have everyone laughing lead to the real word. In an earlier lesson, we mentioned figuring out new words was like trying on shoes to see if they fit. Well, do the same here. Try them on. See if they fit. With these trickiest critters, mostly it just comes down to what seems to make sense. So let's sum this up. Our cute sleepy dog is the visual clue that we cannot depend on rules for words with OU, OW, and GH. So, a small monkey on the card reminds students that they need a clue, and the teacher will always provide the clue. Now let's get started. Refer to all the remaining cards from 8, 9, and 10, the ones with the monkeys. Again, the yellow page will guide you through everything I just explained. At this point, you have just completed half of this program. After this particular lesson, the students just continue to get stronger and move with surprising speed. This is the turning point. You will observe that when students reach this lesson, they have become quite independent with both a routine and what has been requested of them. There are no more red rules. From this point on, we will move forward by building on everything we've learned. Go back to this lesson page and begin. I will see you at lesson 6.